Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Horn with DIPRA. Um, Jeff invited me to sit in on this.
Yes, welcome, welcome. We're glad, happy to have you. We have Jeffrey Butters sitting over here to my left. So,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Jeff Jeffrey's been doing a great job for us in Glendale. We're going to try to get him looped in with all the other municipalities.
Very good. Very good. Glad to hear it.
All right, everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. We do have a quorum. Welcome, welcome to today's Maricopa Association of Governments Standard Specifications and Detail Committee. Appreciate everybody being here. Real quick, I want to introduce just a brief introduction to Jeffrey Butters. He's new to the committee. He's sitting in to give a presentation. He's going to help. He's with DIPRA, the Ductile Iron Pipe Research Association. So he'll have a presentation later on in the agenda. And then we also have another visitor. It's Greg Horn. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my name. Thank you.
And Greg Horn is also with the Ductile Iron Pipe Research Association. So I want to thank both of them for joining today's meeting, and we're looking forward to that presentation. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, the call to the audience. An opportunity will be provided to the members of the public to address the committee on items that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the MAG. And informational items or on items on the agenda for discussion but not for action. Members of the public attending in person are asked to fill out a request to speak form. Comments must not exceed 3 minutes in length. A total of 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. Members of the public attending in person may comment on the agenda items posted for action at the time the item is heard. Those attending virtually may submit a written comments. Those attending virtually may submit written comments related to the meeting through the MAG website at azmag.gov/comment and indicate for which meeting the comment is intended. Comments must be received at least 2 hours prior to the posted start time of the meeting. Comments received by the deadline will be provided to the members of the committee in advance of the meeting for consideration. Comments received after the deadline will be provided to the committee members at the next scheduled meeting of the committee, except for comments specific to an agenda item for that meeting. Please note that comments for specific agenda items received after the deadline will not be forwarded and would need to be resubmitted prior to the next meeting of the committee. I have not received any comments. Gordon, have you received any comments?
No comments received.
All right, thank you, Gordon. Move into agenda item number 3, approval of the April 3rd, 2024 meeting minutes. Gordon will bring those up. If you could scroll through, hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to review last month's meeting minutes and make comments if necessary. Does anybody have any questions or comments on on this, on the meeting minutes? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
This is Warren. I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Warren.
Okay, I'll second.
Jose, thank you. With that, we can go ahead and get into a roll call vote.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Starting in reverse, Youngtown. Oh, Youngtown's present. Kempe,
Present.
is that a yes on the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Surprise? I don't think surprise.
Yeah, Rob Field, City Surprise.
Oh, good, thank you. Scottsdale. Scottsdale. Phoenix,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Goodyear. Not present. Glendale,
Glendale, yes?
Gilbert,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
El Mirage,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Buckeye is yes.
Avondale.
Yes.
Back to Scottsdale. Roy, are you on?
Finally figured out how to work my mic. Yes. Put me down for yes, please.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, everybody. All right, we'll move into agenda item number 4. This is for the Ductile Iron Pipe Research Association presentation. Just a little bit of background on this real quick before we get started, Jeffrey. So I'm hoping that this presentation is going to bring awareness to all the municipalities and industry, and really ultimately guide us and assist us with their publications and maximize the longevity of ductile iron pipe. So I know Glendale's strong with ductile iron pipe. We require it. We don't allow alternative pipes in the right of way. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand over the mic to Jeffrey Butters.
Hello, thank you, Gene, for having me. A little bit of background about DIPRA. DIPRA is a trade association, so we don't sell anything. We're a nonprofit. We're funded through the manufacturers of iron pipe in the United States and Canada, which is US Pipe, American Ductile, and McLean Ductile, and in Canada, Canada Pipe, which is part of the McLean family. A little history of DIPRA. DIPRA at the time was CIPRA, the Cast Iron Pipe Research Association, was founded in 1915. At the time, they did advertisements and they're promoting iron pipe for the manufacturers. As time went and more research and more expertise came online, they started doing much more technically based items. Today, we do various resources and services. We have published brochures and publications covering a wide variety of items of ductile iron, including we work with CorePro, which is a corrosion agency, to come up with the DDM, a design decision model. And that item or that brochure is a guideline for utilities to protect their pipe based on a matrix of corrosion versus difficulty. How critical is that pipeline? We also do standards. We work with committees to work on standards. We do technical research, as the name implies. Oh, sorry, wrong button. I'm part of the regional engineer program. We do engineering specifications. So when utilities, reviewing their specifications, if they want to update them, they can call us. We can help advise what we would recommend to be added to those specifications. Planning, installation, asset management. If engineers having some trouble with a section of pipe or any kind of design issue, they can call us and we'll advise as best we can. We'll often get the manufacturers involved as well. We don't deal with anything proprietary. So if a manufacturer has something proprietary, we can give you a general overview, but if you want specifics, you have to go to that manufacturer. We can't do anything with pricing. We can't do anything with, how fast I'm going to get my pipe, which from what I understand is pretty much back to the way it was pre-COVID. Technical training, we do lunch and learn presentations. We'll come out and we'll do wrapping and tapping demonstrations, show you how to wrap the pipe and protect it with poly wrap. And again, everything we do is free of charge. So if you're having an issue and we come out and do a presentation, we'll provide lunch. It's not going to cost you guys anything other than your time. We do attend as many AWA and ASC pipelines conferences as we can. Many of our members are also AMP or NACE certified corrosion specialists. Dipper is broken up into 6 different regions. We have 5 in the United States now. We're working on a 6th in the United States and 1 in Canada. I do cover the Southwest, which is everything south of San Francisco and south of San Francisco and west of El Paso. So, but I'm, Arizona is pretty centrally located in my territory, so I'm more than happy to come out here and help anybody out. Dipper.org is our website. You can click on that and you can find our different technical resources. Ask an expert, you can go to that and it'll reach out to us directly. Under the technical resources, you have calculators. If they're having some issues, especially with like thrust restraint, that calculator will help you estimate or help you identify how many joints need to be restrained in order to control that thrust. If you go to technical resources, you can also go down to, excuse me, all technical resources. If you know what you're looking for, that's going to be all our publications in that location. We can go back. As the name implies, we do a lot of research. A lot of our time is spent there. In fact, Greg Horn is down in Florida right now dealing with that. Dipper's been doing research since 1928 all the way up till present day, ongoing. Some key ones were our Bolt study in 1949. That is when we came up with polyethylene encasement as a protective method for iron pipe. These are our test sites throughout the United States. Each test site is chosen for its different soil characteristics. What if it has bacteria that accelerates the corrosion cell, but it doesn't have chlorides? What if it has chlorides, but it doesn't have sulfides? All that kind of fun stuff we look at. We love the Everglades. On the old 10-point scale of corrosion, if a soil hit 10 points, it was considered corrosive. This is a 23.5-point soil. It'll chew through a pipe in 4.5 years. So we get fast results. So we like that spot a lot. This is our test site from Spanish Fork, Utah. This is how we kind of bury our pipes now, groups at a time. We do use corrosion probes now, so we don't have to incur the cost of digging up a pipe, but we still do dig up pipe and test it. We'll measure the pits, looking for the deepest pit, looking for the corrosion rate and whether or not that protection method was valid. If it's not valid and we see it's not valid, we'll abandon it and work on something that's might work. Polyethylene encasement Research started in 1952, as I said. Continued on till 1972 before the first standard was written. So there's a lot of research that goes into those standards before they get written. And DIPRA is involved in that when that does happen. Also for the reviews. Excuse me. Polyethylene encasement, we recommend 4 different methods to wrap the pipe. Modified method A is the most common recommended today. But we're always looking for different methods. That's currently our preferred. We've done testing on tapping. This is what we like to call the porcupine. It is as many taps as you can fit on, I believe it's a 4-inch line. I believe it's 52-inch tap or 52 taps on that 4-inch line. And you can't read it, but it's pumped up to 500 PSI.
And that's with a direct tap.
With a direct tap. No leaks at the taps. The corpse started leaking because the corpse aren't rated to 500 PSI. We've also done pull-out studies as well as shear studies. We haven't seen any damage to the threads on the pipe. It's always been the corp that failed. You can basically rethread a new corp onto it. The only limitation is size, and that's because of the AWA standards for thread count. We also do site investigations. So this is Lafourche Parish, Louisiana. This is the very first polyethylene encased pipe in the United States. Installed, I believe it was 1958. It was installed. It is a cast iron line. And that line, we have not found any pitting or corrosion on that pipe to this day.
Dug it up and then exposed.
Yeah.
And then rewrap.
Exactly. We rewrap it. Today we rewrap it with VBio enhanced polyethylene. But we'll dig up a new section every 3 to 5 years just to see how it's doing. And that is very nasty soil as well. We'll also do investigations if the utilities having issues with leaks. We'll come out and identify, try to identify what happened, what can be done to prevent it in the future, what can be done to mitigate damage that's already been done. This is Logandale, Nevada, just above Las Vegas. Come to find out their contractor failed to wrap the pipe at each joint. And this is their 24-inch line that they have to replace now because that happened. So if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to help. Greg's on as well. If I don't know, he's gonna know. I'm still fairly new to the game, but I'm always learning. I'm always gaining knowledge. And we have some of the sharpest guys in the industry on our staff. Alan Cox has been doing this for 42 years. Paul Hansen, I believe, has been doing this for 38 years. And Greg, I won't do that to him. So.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for the presentation and just kind of a description of where, who DIPRA is and how we can benefit by using your publications. Greg, do you have any comments you'd like to add or anything you would like to add to the presentation?
If I can unmute myself, I will. Yeah, I just want to augment what Jeff said. Our job is to provide expertise regarding the application of ductile iron pipe. And we have the benefit of being able to promote ductile iron pipe by promoting ductile iron pipe. Its strength is its strength, and we have worked very hard to keep up with the baseline, the benchmark that I think has been established for service lives for pipe of 100 years. We've got nearly 600 utilities in the U.S. that have had pipe served for 100 years in their system. Just shy of 30 that have had it for 150 years, and we've got a couple of utilities that have had pipe in their system for 200 years, which and that's this year that we'll add to those clubs. The research, Jeff mentioned that I'm in Florida. We've we've got our 4 test sites here in Florida. We installed a research project yesterday that'll go for 5 years. Typically, our research is going to last 20 years. And we're pulling pipe out of another test site today and tomorrow, which we'll take back to Birmingham and evaluate. And we use this research to help us understand how ductile iron pipe works in aggressive environments so that we can make the best recommendations to ensure that the people that use ductile iron pipe get the service life that they desire. Jeff mentioned the installation methods. Also on our website are some videos, and we've got videos on the proper way to install polyethylene encasement that we did a few years ago. It's very good. We actually are using a method that we learned from Colorado Springs in Colorado. The modified method A is the way they encased their ductile iron pipe. And I was there to witness it. We were putting some corrosion probes under VBio, one of the first installations of VBio there, and we wanted to make sure that they installed it properly. And we were so impressed with the method that we've brought it to the rest of the community. And I encourage you to look for those videos there. We also have videos talking about flow tests that we've done, the videos on the Lafourche Parish polyethylene encasement dig ups and so forth. And as you probably saw, the list of publications that we've got is pretty extensive. We deal with virtually every aspect of pipe application, our own pipe, and also how we compare and contrast with our industry's competition.
Well, Greg, what I can appreciate is how detailed you guys are in your publications, especially when it comes to poly wrapping and that method, that installation, very detail oriented. I do have a question though. Do you have anything on your website for taps, not direct taps, but I guess it would be with a double banded bronze saddle? Do you have anything?
Saddle taps. Well, I don't know that we've got a brochure. We do have a recommendation for it. If you look, if you have looked on our tapping brochures, which you probably have, you know that we recommend wrapping tape around the polyethylene encased pipe, and then you attach the tapping machine to the tape. It's got a chain on it, so it protects the film, and we recommend just tapping right through it. For a tapping saddle, which has a larger O-ring, we recommend sort of the same thing. You wrap the tape around the pipe where you're going to install the tap, and then you cut a hole whose diameter matches the diameter of the O-ring, and tap it that way. And so you would put the saddle on the outside of the film. And of course, if you're using polyethylene encasement, you probably have an aggressive soil, so you'll have to take steps to protect the saddle. But we think it's a better idea to put the saddle on the outside of the encasement rather than the encasement on top of the saddle.
So Greg, why I wanted you to kind of describe that and explain it is we had Alan Cox out a few years ago to help kind of shift the culture and help bring awareness, specifically when dealing with those metals like bronze and copper. And you guys came out, I encourage all of our listeners online and everybody here to invite DIPRA into your home and have them provide do a lunch and learn. You'll learn a lot from it. We did it I put together one with some of the West Side municipalities, brought them to the Oasis campus with Alan Cox. Very informative. Everybody got something out of it. And I think a lot of people ask though, well, how do they get paid? How does DIPRA get paid? Can you explain? Maybe I missed that in the presentation, but how you're subsidized?
Yeah, we do. Of course, all the things we do, we do advertising, obviously, and we've got public affairs, we have government affairs, and we have our technical resources, which is what I'm in charge of, and the regional engineer program is under that. We work on standards that are AWAS standards, ISO standards, standards that are generated by AMP and so forth. But from all of our activities, we establish a budget that is funded by the manufacturers of ductile iron pipe. And that one of those first slides that Jeff showed you, the four entities that are the Ductile Iron Pipe Research Association. It's all of the manufacturers in North America, and they fund our activities.
So it's fair to say if I called the manufacturer and said I need assistance with this contractor in burying pipe and poly wrapping pipe, your name, DIPRA, would come up.
Well, we might. It depends. Now, they also have resources themselves, and we would engage with a contractor or even a distributor, but a contractor primarily after a bid has been let, and because for antitrust reasons, our member companies actually compete against each other. So we're not, we can't be a conduit for information that helps them compete against each other.
Gotcha.
But you can, if there's a question like that, you can contact us directly, and we're happy to help out any way we can. And as
So
Jeff mentioned, all of our services are free of charge. They're basically paid for by the manufacturers.
Good. That's kind of where I was going, just kind of enlighten everybody on that. Another thing I wanted to mention to the group, everybody online and whatnot, is if you do try to contact either Greg or our rep in this area, which is Jeffrey Butters, I found it might be better just to go through the website and ask an engineer to start, because we were having problems communicating with the software you guys use on your email. I kept getting kicked into
Oh, yeah.
spam, or not even spam, just blocked altogether. And it took multiple phone calls to Alan Cox before he said, "I'm not receiving your emails." And then I was able to reach out to Jeff. He put me in touch with Jeffrey Butters, and then at that point they were able to straighten it out. So you guys, if anybody wants to reach out to them, maybe start with the website. What do you think on that?
Well, you can certainly do that, and it comes if you're in you put your zip code or whatever in there, the message will go to the regional engineer that covers that is your regional engineer. And if you're having trouble like that, once you get in touch finally, we can usually, if we get an email that doesn't go through to our inbox, it's quarantined in a place that we can go to it, and we can allow your email to come through forevermore beyond that. It doesn't happen a lot, but it happens, and it's the there's so many hackers these days, it's almost impossible to do anything on the internet anymore without having passwords and usernames and proving that you're not a robot. And then on top of that, they'll quarantine the odd email that doesn't really need to be quarantined.
Yeah, we ran across those challenges. I think at this point, I'd like to open it up for questions from other committee members, industry and whatnot, everybody we have here. If anybody has any questions or wants any clarification from either Jeffrey Butters or Greg, it's open.
Jeffrey, going back to the last slide, I think you presented on, you said you've got an improved polywrap.
Yes. VBio was developed several years ago. It is an enhanced polyethylene, has an anti-corrosion, antimicrobial agent built into the wrap.
Okay.
So as water gets under the wrap, which we know it's going to happen, it neutralizes that water. So it stops the corrosion cell before it starts.
Okay. And
that is our preferred base method of protection of the pipe.
okay. And okay. So is that looking at it on the picture that you had on the slide, it's not poly, it's a different product.
No, it is.
Well, no, it is polyethylene. It is polyethylene, but it's what's referred to as a co-extruded film.
Okay.
And in doing that, what we do is we have an additive. We add a corrosion inhibitor and an antimicrobial component, and it winds up in the innermost 1.5 mils of the film's thickness, and that's what's right up against the pipe.
Okay.
So the corrosion inhibitor will leave the film and go to corrosion cells that are trying to form and inhibit their formation. and the antimicrobial will keep bacteria from influencing the corrosion
That
cell.
product still is the bag, right?
It's linear low density polyethylene, just like which it has been since the early 1990s.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Warren. Question for you. It sounds like a great opportunity for agencies to have you come and do lunch and learns. I agree with that. Have you done many pre-cons where you go out and before a water main replacement project or a large water line project and kind of do a presentation on the wrapping and to the contractor? Have you done many of those type of events?
We've done some. We don't get invited to do that a lot, but I've done one in the past. But yeah, and that's the time to do it. It's after the bid's been let, when we know it's ductile iron, and then we can go in and provide that type of training.
Good.
And we
And
can
then-
do it. We can do it for your crews too. I think what was being talked about before, we call it the wrapping and tapping demonstration. To show you the proper way to wrap the pipe and then how to tap through it.
Yeah, Warren, we took advantage of that. Water distribution invited these guys in, DIPRA, into into our yard basically, but we had a room set up, a very large room where we had the ductile iron pipe, and we were able to kind of go through the motions, being that it was probably June or July, so it made sense to do it indoors. But yeah, that was very, very helpful.
That was actually my first one.
And if you have inspection, we can certainly train your inspectors at any time. Because I mean, all of this is important. The polyethylene encasement, it sounds simple enough, but it's an engineered system, and it needs to be put on right, just like any other engineered system does.
Well, Greg,
And
I
that
don't-
was my next scary question is what percentage of the time do you think it's done improperly? With
The biggest problems that we have seen with polyethylene encasement, the overlap at the joint is a little more difficult, and that's one of the reasons we like modified method A, because it simplifies that as much as possible. The other thing that we've seen is because often you'll put if you're building a subdivision, say you're going to put the road in, the pipes in the street. You haven't built the houses yet. You build the houses, and then you tap it a year or 2 years later, and the person that comes in to tap it tears the polyethylene away, taps into the pipe, and they don't repair the polyethylene. That's why we like to tap through it. You don't tear it away, and now you've got a corrosive soil and a brass coupling attached to an iron pipe, and the iron will sacrifice itself to protect the corpse stop and copper tubing if you've got that as your service line. But if the protection is isolated, it can cause a premature failure right there at that location. The third thing that we see is a failure to gather up. The tube is sized so that it'll go over the joint, which has a larger outside diameter than the pipe itself. And we like to see the film gathered up and folded over and held in place while you backfill it, so that it's important, and especially with VBio. The VBio needs to be in intimate contact with the full circumference of the pipe along its entire length. And if there's a water table involved, we'll want to wrap tape around the pipe at the full circumference around the pipe at 2 foot intervals for as long as if the water table is going to intrude into the pipe zone. Because while we do see that moisture can get under the wrap, as long as it's not replenished, you'll get superficial corrosion. The oxygen in that moisture will be depleted, and corrosion will stop. And that's the way traditional polyethylene worked. With the VBio, you might not even get that. But the wrap has to be put on right.
makes sense. Thank you.
Warren, once again, I recommend everybody go to their website, and you could download those publications on how to, lots of very nice pictures on how to wrap. So I know in the inspection world, they love pictures, so
So true.
it helps everything out.
And we like training people so that everybody knows what they're doing. It's important. We want our pipe to last a long time. We like 100 years of service. And we think you can get that if with due diligence. I think well, you're going to bury pipe in the ground. You don't see it unless it well, you might have to see it if you're going to tap into it, but often you don't see it again unless it gives you problems. And we just assume you never saw it again unless you wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Does anybody else have any questions for Greg or for Dipra or for Jeffrey? So what's leading this, hopefully Jeffrey, you could stick around. Greg, you're welcome to stick around as well, at least to agenda item number 9, where we get into the MAG 610. We'll get to that here soon, but hopefully you guys can stick around through the agenda for a little bit. At least Jeffrey, that'd be great.
Yeah. No problem.
Mr. Chairman, I've a question real quick. Will this presentation be attached to the meeting minutes?
Yes, we can have that.
Yes, and the draft presentation is already posted on the MAG website meeting page. There was a few modifications to the presentation that he gave me, that I'll need to update, but can check there. Oh, I think my mic was off. Sorry. For those online, we do have the presentation posted on the MAG meeting page. There's going to be some updates to it based on what he presented today, but you can download it from our website there.
Thank you.
All right, we have a lot to get to. If there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. One more chance for any questions.
I did have one last question.
Go ahead, Jim.
So just real quick, what does DIPRA recommend for location of the tracer wire? Is it on the pipe or outside on top of the poly wrap?
For ductile iron,
Yes.
you don't use tracer wire.
Well, we still do it, so.
Yeah, well, I would put it above the pipe, outside of the film. I guess you're going to send a signal down it that you would locate. And then if you're also going to do that, and this is done for PVC pipe all the time because PVC is sound doesn't travel down it very well, and it's not metallic, so it's more difficult to locate. But the tracer wire above the pipe, and then above that a warning tape to let people know that there's a tracer wire right below it, so that they don't. If you have to expose the pipe, you don't break the wire.
And you generally want it about a foot above the plastic pipe if you're using PVC.
Well, that's good to hear because that kind of matches our current detail.
Are you talking about the tape or the wire?
Both the pipe, the wires on top of the pipe, and we have that trench detail shows the tape above it as well.
Yeah.
You want to encounter the tape before you encounter the wires, and the tape will remind you or inform you that there's a wire down below that you don't want to wind up in your backhoe bucket.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so that'll take us right into the tracer wire installation and related details. So agenda item number 5 is case 23-09. This is a proposed new section 632 water and sanitary sewer tracer wire installation and the related details. Warren, you want to take off with this one?
Sure, happy to provide an update. Just high level, I have not received any additional comments. So the current draft reflects all comments received so far. So this is the large case, obviously affects adding some new installation specifications for tracer wire, something we haven't had in MAG. And the installation specification has some graphics that kind of illustrate the placement and then ties those to the construction details that are all new as well. But yeah, here's the detail we have currently, where, as Jim was mentioning, we have debated the location of the tracer wire. And to us, it seemed like the most logical place for visibility and all to have the wire on top of the pipe for inspections. There was some discussion about the fact that it could be affected during the backfilling and movement. So obviously we have some tie down requirements to keep it in place, but so that's where it stands currently.
So generally speaking, we bed all of our pipe in ABC, an aggregate base course, and then you would have your tracer wire attached on the outside of the polyethylene encasement, taped onto that, and then you would have 12 inches of AB on above the pipe. Then you would have your ID tape, notifying whether it's water, sewer, raw water, whatever it may be. Correct?
Correct. Thanks, Gene. That summarized it perfectly.
And keeping it outside of the polyethylene greatly simplifies the installation of the polyethylene.
Yeah, and it's better for the inspector. He can see both the polyethylene and the tracer wire on top of it. So it's nice to see both. Because sometimes they're not always on site 8 hours a day to watch everything.
Well, the good thing about ductile iron pipe is with its strength, and if you're going to polyethylene encase it, you can pretty much tell by looking. I've often thought that you could have a contractor give him a tablet that requires him to take a photograph of every pipe that he's installed with the encasement on it, and you can tell with a photograph whether it's been put on right. And so you wouldn't necessarily have to have full inspection the whole time. It's an idea I had. I've mentioned it a few times and no one shot it down yet, but you could have longitude and latitude, date stamp, go up to the cloud and someone could look at it in the office and approve it for backfill.
Greg, I'm going to shoot that down right now. I've walked many, many, many miles of trench with pipe, and the amount of cuts and rips and tears just from trying to work fast and having to tape that stuff back up, I would be terrified to have to rely on pictures and sleep at night knowing that pipe was bedded properly. So that was, that's my experience. Everybody's got their own, right?
Well, they do. I mean, everybody does have their own experiences.
So on this particular item, Warren, obviously this was for information and discussion. How far out do you think we are until we can move it into action? Where do you feel we're at?
I would like to see us wrap this case up this year. Obviously, it was carried over, so we need to. I'm open to if any agencies still feel like they need to have their teams review it more. I think we should have all comments at least by June meeting, so we can have final votes by July would be my perspective, but open for.
I'll support that 100%. I agree. We need to get this moving. You're going to incorporate the latest comments. We're going to look for another round of comments. And if we're not receiving anything else and any changes, I would agree. We need to move it in for action. Jeffrey's got a question or a comment.
Just as a note, if you are using plastic pipe and you're using tracer wire, you're going to want to go up 6 to 12 inches above with that tracer wire, just in case it gets struck by lightning, because it'll electrify the pipe and burst it. Not that I want to help PVC, but I don't want you to lose pipe.
That's the first time I heard that one, but
That is new. We have not heard that. 6 to 12 inches above for plastic is what you're recommending. Is there any?
Has that ever happened? Document? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, we have photos of it.
And that's specifically if you're using tracer wire in this, which would carry that. Okay. Yeah, if you could share that information or any backup to that, that would be great.
Sure, we love sharing pictures of exploded PVC.
All right. do
Well,
we-
I asked that same question. Why couldn't that happen to ductile too?
The lightning's not gonna cause a ductile to fail. Not like that.
What's that? Was that Greg?
Yeah, yes.
What was the comment, Greg?
Lightning is not gonna cause ductile iron to fail.
Okay.
I
it'll
wouldn't
just-
want to be, I wouldn't want to be sitting on it when it happened, but,
Well, I guess we'll have to weigh the risks with the benefits there to see if it's, because obviously having it placed above doesn't allow that to be tied to the pipe as easily, and that might complicate the installation. So we'll have to really
Yeah,
understand.
I think, yeah, I agree, Warren. We try to put this above the pipes, it's freestanding, if you want to call it. It's gonna get broken a lot. Continuity is gonna get broken up. Yeah, it's just, that's, I don't know. I don't know. I would take the risk. So,
Jim,
And
what
it
my-
never rains here anyway, Jim.
I know.
only thunders and lightnings. Jim, what I would suggest, Warren, what I would suggest is let's take Jeffrey up on his offer with some pictures and some background on that. We'll feed it into the working group and you guys can make that decision based on tangible information. Fair enough?
Great. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, one real quick comment before we move on.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
On that, I would be interested to find out if there was, if the tracer wire was grounded as well. On our detail, we've got grounds, we've got mini grounds throughout the system. So I would be curious to find out if it was grounded as well.
Great point, Craig. Great point.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, hey, Warren, I should have my comments from Public Works here by next working group meeting. So,
Thanks, Jim.
All right, any other questions or comments on this case 23-09? All right, hearing none, we're going to move into the new cases for 2024. This is agenda item number 6. Case 24-01 for miscellaneous corrections. We do have a new one in here, I believe. Yeah, D would be clarify notes 1 and 2 on detail 545 end section reinforcement concrete pipe. Who do we know who brought that one forward? Because I am not familiar with this one.
Mr. Chairman, it would be me, Craig, and Buckeye.
Craig, can you help elaborate a little bit on this one? Please?
Yeah, well, we were going through the detail on another issue we've got from one of the manufacturers, and started reading some of the notes, and some of the language on the notes just didn't sound, I don't want to say, grammatically correct, but it just kind of sounded weird. So I kind of thought, let's change it so it sounds a little bit more professional, and throws out the same thought process. That was why I kind of pitched the two revisions. They say the same thing, only it's just a little more grammatically correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm reading it right now. It's the same technical message. It's just worded a little differently.
That's correct.
It's updated as Arvid would say. So the other items backing up, we have the section 325.8 quality control, second paragraph, just remove the extra space and shall. We also have we want to copy the note for scoring the concrete collars from detail 270, detail 120, just get that over for consistency. These seem like no-brainers to me. We also want to correct the spelling for the detail for the Ford crossing for the 552 from course to course. The wonderful English language allows us to spell the same word differently. So, and then the new case that Craig Sharp just noted. Anybody have any questions or comments on the cases that I had referenced? All right, we'll move into agenda item number 7. This is case 24-03, revised table 714-2 microsurfacing job mix formula. This is to come in alignment with another technical bulletin. We're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna have Greg go ahead and just give a brief summary on it for those that don't recall. But this one is up for action, so I would suggest pay attention to what Greg's going to describe right now, and the floor is yours, Greg.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I don't believe I haven't received any comments. Gordon, has there been any comments that you're aware of on this case? I didn't think so either. So this is just basically the description there identifies technical bulletin 147 from the International Slurry Surfacing Association. And in some of the previous packets, I think it might have been I don't see it in this one, but in their latest update to technical bulletin 147, they removed the specific gravity requirement, the maximum of 2.1. The two dates were, the original one was done back in 1989. And the revision that eliminated the specific gravity maximum was 2022. There was some questions asked from this association as to why they made the changes. And what they determined was that basically they couldn't figure out, the gentleman who did these tests originally had done them in a very specific region of the country where the aggregates were more porous, had a lighter specific gravity or a lesser specific gravity of the materials. And he found that under those specific aggregates, I think it was limestone, which we hardly have any here, that was potentially problematic. However, ISSA doing further work, in looking at aggregates all across the country, they have finally just went, you know what, we've done the work, we've looked at it again, we can't figure out any reasons as to why that maximum is there, because that maximum doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do anything to it. They've got plenty of aggregates that have passed this at a higher, much higher specific gravity. So they removed it. That's basically the gist of the case. And I know we talked about this. I can't remember when we introduced this one. I'd have to look at the notes real quick. So we talked about it in the March one. I think we brought it in and maybe even 2 months ago, talked about it and brought it in, and then.
Yeah, last month in the packet included those technical bulletins, and those are also still posted on the cases under consideration page. But in this packet, it just shows the change, the strikeout on tables 714-2.
And this is just going to bring MAG in alignment with the latest technical bulletin 147.
Correct. It's not changing the actual table. The technical bulletin that it references is this, we're just updating it to the new technical bulletin revision, same numbering.
And you're correct. We've had this going for a couple meetings now. We haven't got much feedback, any questions on it. So
no, and I think a couple agencies had this conversation directly with one of this micro slurry contractors. And so that's kind of how this whole thing got started originally. And no, we have not received any comments to date.
Anybody have any questions or comments or even concerns with putting this up for vote?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Greg, I don't have any questions or concerns on it, but you did say something before that this specific gravity mostly has to do with softer aggregates like limestone. And you said we don't have a lot of that around here. If we have any, would it be a pretty good idea to leave it in?
So that's a good point though, too, Craig. While there might be some softer around, regardless of that, that was the reason why they started down this path of changing it. They've done plenty of work after the fact, and even with, I'd have to go through and reread the email from them, but I believe that their research came back and determined that even with limestone, that it could potentially have a higher specific gravity than 2.1, that they didn't feel that there was a need for a maximum anymore, that the job mix formulas ultimately would dictate the rest of the requirements for the design itself, and that just because the aggregate weighed more, it didn't really have any effect on a pass or fail, even though that's what this gentleman had deemed early on when he put it together.
Okay, because that was going to be a follow-up. So it depends on if it's, the softness, the hardness of the material. The LA abrasion would take care of anything that was too soft.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. No, that answered my question. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, that's a good point. You
You're
wouldn't
welcome.
make it through the LA abrasion.
And again, just to add, for some weird reason, this is a maximum specific gravity, not a minimum.
Right. Specific gravity is good when you're dealing with surface courses.
Typically, typically, you don't want things that will break up.
All right, well, if we don't have any more questions or on this case, I would entertain a motion to vote on this. I would motion myself, but as the chair, I can't.
This is Warren. I'll motion to approve.
Warren, thank you for breaking the ice.
Chairman, I'll second that.
Is that Dan?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much, Dan. We can,
Okay, let's do a roll call vote again, starting in reverse. Youngtown. Not present. Tempe.
Yes.
Surprise.
Yes.
Scottsdale.
Yes.
Phoenix.
Yes.
Peoria.
Yes.
Mesa.
Yes.
Maricopa County.
Yes.
Goodyear. Not present. Glendale.
yes.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Florence.
Yes.
El Mirage.
Yes.
Chandler.
Yes.
Buckeye.
Okay. Yes.
Avondale.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Gordon. All right, we'll go ahead and move into agenda number 8, agenda item number 8. This is case 24-04. Remove details 302-1 and 302-2 joint restraints with tie rods. This one I'm bringing forward. It was a little background on it. Looking through it, it's outdated in a sense that I haven't seen this installed in the since 1999 when I got into the business. So I always heard about it. Like I said, it was that unicorn that you never really saw. You just heard that if the contractor didn't have a thrust block, they had to refer to this detail. There's other inconsistencies or outdated information I should add on the second sheet, which would be 302-2. They're referencing an ASTM that hasn't existed since 1980. And that's regarding cadmium plating on all the components, which we just don't see anymore. So this one in particular, we received a comment to the committee this was from Ralph Goodall, who is a professional engineer or was a professional engineer with the city of Phoenix for many, many years. He was a respected professional engineer, and his comment was he wanted to lend support to the chair and Arvid for, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. This one was he wanted to lend support to the chair for the desire to delete the old outdated mag detail 302-1 and 302-2 for tie rod joint restraints. These are truly way outdated. In his personal experience, this method of restraint hasn't been used since the early 1980s. So with that, I would like to delete these details in their entirety since they're not being used. There's no sense in them residing in this publication. So I'd like to open it up, though, if anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to note regarding this detail or their experience with it.
Or lack of
Experience. Thank you, Jose.
Yeah, Gene, Craig, and Buckeye.
Go ahead, Craig.
The interesting thing, I've been doing this since '98. And even looking at some of the ductile iron fittings, I don't think they even manufacture those fittings any longer.
So thank you for bringing that up. I did research that with a couple of the manufacturers, and it was a head scratcher. I sent the details over and they said, yeah, we might be able to get them, but I'd have to work on that for a bit. So yeah, they're not readily available, nor are they stocked or even thought about being ordered. The individuals that I talked to, like I said, they scratched their head for a minute and said they'd have to look into it. But thank you for that comment.
Yeah, I think this would be a good deletion.
Great. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this, on these two details on this case? All right. Hearing none, I'd like to move it for action for the next meeting. So, Gordon, can you note this one for possible action at the next meeting?
I will do so.
Thank you, Gordon. And in the meantime, I would hope everybody would take this back to their distribution people or their engineers and clear it with them, let them know what we're doing. So that way, when we get to the next meeting, we can push it through seamlessly or not. So bring your comments if you have any for the next meeting. There you go. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move into agenda item number 9. This is case 24-05, add DIPRA reference to MAG section 610 in the text portion of MAG. This one also I'm bringing a little background on it. We've challenged, Glendale has, inspectors have been challenged with particularly the first general description under 610.2. The general description calls out for applicable provisions of AWWA standards. In the field, that's a paid publication, the AWWA. So for everybody to have that publication available isn't always the case. The ones that we have to reference, but after chasing down this rabbit hole of the AWWA is when I discovered that DIPRA is mentioned throughout AWWA as the Ductile Iron Pipe Research Association. So what my suggestion is to help our inspection staff out there, thank you, Gordon, there's the first one initially with the AWWA reference, but to help the inspection staff and to help the municipalities out there out in the field, I'd like to add, and I'll work with Jeffrey Butters on this with the language, but I'd like to add DIPRA into this section in a couple of locations there, and then also under 610.6, which is the polyethylene corrosion protection, put a blip in there regarding DIPRA as well. We'll also probably allude to their different methods. That would have been for the installation portion, which I don't think we have it attached to this. We don't have it attached to this agenda, but further down into 610. So with that, I will work with DIPRA on trying to fit the language in accordingly, or where it'd be best to reference them, and then what methods to reference, and then I'll bring that back to the committee at the next committee meeting for everybody to kind of pick apart. But at this point, does anybody have any suggestions on 610? Or is anybody opposed to adding DIPRA into 610? I'll open it up for discussion.
I just had one question, Gene. Are we mainly focusing on including DIPRA's recommendation for corrosion protection or all of DIPRA categories? So they just showed us they have a bunch. So I don't know that we've all vetted everything that's in there.
Yeah.
One thing that comes to mind is deflection. I know DIPRA has some tables for common deflection, but ultimately we should be following manufacturer's recommendation for deflection. So would like to avoid those kind of issues where there may be cases where it conflicts. So I'm not sure if, Jeffrey, if you have anything to say with that.
All our recommendations are approved by all manufacturers.
Mhm.
Some may have more deflection capabilities based on their joint specifically, but all have said that, you know, the 3 to 5
Okay.
is an industry standard kind of thing.
No, that's a good point, Jose, and, you know, I eat that elephant one bite at a time, so this is, you really want to get into it, it could be a lot of work putting it throughout. They have pipe buckling, publications, they have a
So
lot.
I would just recommend maybe saying, and DIPRA were specified, right? And then add it right into corrosion coding, because I think the general guideline or understanding is that, yeah, we want to make sure that polywrap is done correctly.
Right. So what I'm looking at doing is adding DIPRA for the whole, for the section of 610 only,
Mhm.
you know, throughout 610. Well, I say only, it is a large section, but starting off in the general, you're suggesting to move it more specific.
No,
into
so
the-
under general, just mention, you know, following the applicable provisions of ABWA and DIPRA were specified. Right, you see every subsection after that has a different chapter or section for APWA, AWA, or when it comes down to corrosion coding, it'll be the specific requirements for DIPRA related to polywrap.
Okay, I'll take that into consideration. I'll work with Jeffrey on that. We had briefly worked on it, and for whatever reason, my changes weren't saved. So him and I have to brainstorm on it again. Luckily, we didn't have hours into it. We had about 10 minutes, 15 minutes into it, but I hate doing work twice. But this time we'll make sure those changes get saved. Otherwise I would have had them to present to, today. So I'll go ahead and have that ready for the next one. Does anybody else have any questions? It's open up for discussion on 610 and DIPRA.
Yeah, Gene, in that first section, 610.2, just as a reference, I don't know what other changes are proposed, but I see that one in the packet here. So I'd have to go back and read those provisions of AWWA as far as handling and installation and whatnot to compare, which is a lot of work. But have you already done that? Have you compared any differences? Does AWWA say something different than what DIPRA says? Are there any differences at all? Or why should we be modifying it? I guess that's the question.
So to answer that last part of your question, Ryan, is modifying it for the sake of inspection primarily. That's my biggest push, is these field guys are fighting, my field guys are going round and round with some people, not all the contractors, but some of them. They're like, it doesn't say anything about DIPRA in here. Why are we doing it? Why are we installing per this handout publication that DIPRA supplied to us on how to polywrap, right? Well, we want the double banded bronze saddle to be installed this way per DIPRA's recommendation. We're getting a lot of pushback on that because it's not in the MAG standard. So what we're having to do is we have to chase down the AWWA and try to make that connection with DIPRA. But for the rest of your question, I'd like to refer the beginning of your question, I'd like to refer back to Jeffrey Butters on how AWWA and DIPRA interact or how they overlap.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So I'll state that, you know, for City of Mesa, our water lines are only ductile iron pipe, right? So this is nothing against ductile iron pipe, just to be clear. But we're also a very stringent and strong supporter of the AWWA standards. And we have modified MAG at times in the past when MAG has not been in conformance with AWWA, because that's the standard that we want to follow. So I'd be a little bit hesitant to change the standard away from AWWA. If we're introducing something new, I'd like to know what the differences are.
So we wouldn't be removing AWWA, we would be adding DIPRA in conjunction to piggyback with AWWA.
Right. So then the language is important because it says and or, meaning you can pick and choose which standard you're going to follow. And that's, you know, and maybe, again, I don't know the difference. Maybe what DIPRA says is the exact same thing that AWWA says, and then it's more.
Well, it is, and if I may, we participate in the writing of the AWA standards through the A21 committee. So I'm the chairman of subcommittee 4 that deals with coatings and linings. So I do the polyethylene encasement standard, the cement mortar lining standard, and the fusion bonded uh, coating for fitting standards. And we have people in our industry that participate in all of the subcommittees. So what DIPRA does basically is we help write the standards, and we in all of our recommendations follow the standards.
So my request would be that if we're going to introduce some language like that, that we have a little bit better understanding, a summary of any differences or whatnot. And if there aren't any differences, then I'd question the need to make a change, but so.
And this is Warren. I think maybe if you just left it with DIPR there in terms of if we all agreed that the encasement information is nice and extra supplementally to add here, but we have an overarching in 610.2 for the AWWA requirements. And so basically all pipes must be per AWWA standards for installation, right? So we already have that. Oh, you're adding there too, sorry.
Yeah, I kind of echo what's been mentioned. I mean, I like the previous statement about where applicable, or, nobody's got time to read both of these simultaneously. I mean, if there is any conflicts, hopefully there's not. But maybe we need to state a disclaimer saying that if there is a conflict, that AWWA will take precedence. So, some kind of it needs to be more defined and set that way. So you don't have people saying, well, we're going to use this one and not this one because we have that choice. So
Right.
you need to set an order of precedence, I think, Gene. So.
AWWA and reference, somehow reference DIPRA in there as a supporting document to AWWA.
Yeah, like a supplement. I think it's great. I've seen their stuff on the wrap. It's great. And I think that's great to include that, but it needs to be referenced properly. So there is no conflict, and, make it more of a supplemental, where applicable, that type of language. I would support that.
Well, luckily we have DIPRA on our team. Jeffrey actually took the time to go through our installation guidelines and verify compliance or verify similarities, or pretty much written the way our installation is written is very similar, if not exact. Jeffrey, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when we went through the installation procedure, I think we just wanted to note maybe per modified A or something, so we could direct somebody to that exact portion of that publication.
Right, yeah, if you wanted to specify, I want these contractors to use modified method A, if that's your preferred method. That way you could just
go right there.
Right there it is.
So can you talk about how you guys align with AWWA as far as the poly wrap, in particular, the corrosion protection?
So as you saw, standards take quite a while to write initially, and then they're reviewed, I believe it's every 3 to 5 years. And then in that time frame, things do come along, new methods do come along. I believe in the new standard, we're adding VBio. Is that correct, Greg?
Well, the C105 is the polyethylene encasement standard, and it is under revision right now. And we are going to add a reference to enhanced polyethylene. They're not going to let us put VBio as a trademark name in it, but we will add a reference to enhanced polyethylene to the standard. And we, basically our industry helps write them. Every AWA standard, the A21 committee under the American Water Works Association writes all of the ductile iron pipe standards that AWA publishes. And the producer members, the manufacturers, and DIPRA we chair the various subcommittees that handle all of these standards. And on every standards making body in A21 is 1/3 producer members, 1/3 general interest members, and 1/3 end user members. So any of you can become a member of the A21 committee uh, just by requesting it. And so we will revise the standards. It's going to be voted on at the subcommittee level. It'll be voted on at the A21 committee level, and then it'll go to the Standards Council, who will also review it. It'll go to public comment period through AWA and through ANSI, and then it'll go to the Board of Directors for AWA for approval, and then it would be published. But we write all those standards, and everything that DIPRA publishes, all of our recommendations that we make follow the standards. Now, there are some things that aren't standardized, like thrust restraint is not standardized. And I would encourage you to get a copy of our installation guide, and Jeff can get you copies. They're free, and they're pocket guides that are meant to be taken out in the field. They are very comprehensive.
Well, Greg,
and cover.
that's what's bringing this up, Greg, is you guys do have that field guide, and what's happening is we're referencing that field guide, and it's not coming across very well with some people because DIPRA is not mentioned in MAG. So that's kind of what's bringing this case up. Well, not kind of, that is what's bringing this case up. And I think what I need to do for this committee, and Ryan had a very, very valid point. What I need to do for this committee is bring the AWWA standard and the DIPRA standard side by side, see how they're referenced, and show the committee how they reference each other, or how they work together. And that's probably what you're looking for, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, if the AWWA standard is more comprehensive and more complete, I don't want to lose that as the specification. Because when we say you follow this standard and or this standard, you're picking and choosing, and now all of a sudden you're throwing out standards that have existed through AWWA for whatever period of time, and you're diluting it down. If the standards are the exact same, there's no reason to change it. And if the standard is more if the DIPRA standard is more comprehensive and or has more stringent standards, then of course we're gonna have to take a look at that and see if that's what we really want to push into our MAG standards. So one way or another, I think we need to understand what the differences between these are. Either they're the exact same, or AWWA is more comprehensive or more stringent, or DIPRA is more comprehensive and more stringent. And either way, no matter which way it is, we need to understand what the difference is, or we need to have language that is not allowing the installer to pick and choose which standard they want to follow.
The DIPRA standard, from what I can tell, it enhances the AWWA publication. Do you have any better description of?
Well, what I would do is, and I'll tell you, I'll say 80% of the questions we get are answered by us explaining what the standards say. The standards are, we endorse the standards in total. If we recommend modified method A, for example, it's in the standard, but the standard also has 3 other methods of installation that anyone can specify, and we're not going to argue with that. There's also, for example, for mechanical joints, there are ductile iron bolts that are available, and there are low alloy steel bolts are available. We've done research that indicates that the low alloy steel bolts are better in an aggressive environment. And so we'll recommend low alloy steel bolts, but we won't. But the ductile iron bolts are in the standard. We're not going to tell you not to follow the standard. We endorse the standards, and we spend a lot of our time just explaining what the standards say.
Right. So Jeff, read back to that question though. Can you help me articulate that, how the two work together, how one enhances the other? Or?
Right, so as Greg was kind of, I think, getting at, was the standard encompasses all, and then we have our recommendations within that standard. So we're not arguing with the standard, we're just saying, we found that like works a little bit better, a little bit faster, versus the other methods in the standard.
Okay.
So in the standard, it's, I guess, broader, I would say, whereas our recommendations might be a little more pinpointed.
Yes, that goes back to what I was stating is you're going to be introducing a more restrictive standard by citing this. And maybe Glendale wants to do that. That's okay. I don't know if Mesa wants to do that or doesn't want to do that. I need to go and talk to more staff, but that's a little bit different than just clarifying you know what I'm saying? Like that's starting to turn into a bigger question of what we actually want to do here.
Right. We reference DIPRA constantly out in the field with their, like Greg had mentioned, their field guide. And that's where the biggest challenge, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's where our biggest challenge is coming from, is trying to get them to follow it. The AWWA publication doesn't have a field guide friendly feel to it. You know, it's a lot of text. Yeah, it's a lot of text that you're trying to read with a contractor when the wind's blowing and your hard hat's on, you know?
It's very comprehensive.
Yeah.
Maybe it would make sense for specific things like the polywrap. If they are the same as AWWA, you could just say, you know, meets AWWA standards, and DIPRA has a field guide that you can reference that meets those same standards, and just reference the field guide that way.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Gordon. That is a great idea. I'll work on that case a little bit more. I'll incorporate that as well, Gordon, and the other committee members' feedback. Ryan, I appreciate your interaction with it for sure. Anybody
Hey,
else
Gene.
have questions or comments on this section?
Yeah, Gina, Craig out in Buckeye.
Go ahead, Craig.
Thought process on that. If we're talking just a polywrap and DIPRA is causing some issues with just the polywrap, I mean, I would actually be in favor of what about creating a detail and throwing DIPRA on the detail for a polywrap. If we want the three different polywrap styles, throw that in there, and I would be up for that, and we could throw DIPRA right into that detail. Is the first question. The second question is, if we're going to start bringing DIPRA into this, this is kind of a much broader comment, but then are we going to start getting into the Clay Pipe Association for clay pipe as opposed to the individual manufacturers like we've been? How far do we want to take this in terms of I don't want to call it, you know, individuals, but kind of overarching control entities?
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. I think, you know,
Yeah, because then you gotta deal with the PVC guys. So, you know, to be fair to everybody, then you're gonna be incorporating a lot of other specs that may or may not be a real spec or more of a supplemental, so I don't know.
so what, coming up, bouncing off that, that's a very good point. Bouncing off that, maybe taking that and Ryan's comments into consideration, maybe what the answer is for me to look more into the actual installation of the polyethylene encasement and how that's set up, and maybe just make sure that's fine tuned and in place with AWWA, with DIPRA, and that language in there is fine tuned and not necessarily having to reference a particular, field worksheet or something, but maybe that's another option. I kind of like having a detail as well. That's one thing I like about the DIPRA field guide is it's very easy to follow, and it's got a lot of pictures for the field guys. So let me put a little more thought into this, taking these comments into consideration, and I'll see what I can bring back to the next meeting for next month.
This is Warren, Gene. I like that idea about the detail too. And also, and kind of what Craig was mentioning, I feel like we've already gone down the road of other materials. I mean, we have concrete, we have polypropylene, we have HDPE, we have all those other installations. So this just goes along with ductile iron pipe installation as a detail. So I don't think we're creating anything unique or proprietary. I think it's just a method for that installation.
Yeah, Warren, that was my exact thought, because when we were back in the day, we were working on rigid conduit and flexible conduit. We didn't want to get specific down to the material because, we would have 24 different materials in this thing. So we just kind of generalized it.
And if I may, I think it's important to appreciate that DIPRA does not write, we don't write DIPRA standards. The American Water Works Association writes the standards, and they're intended to ensure that the ductile iron pipe standards and all the pipe materials, they're intended to ensure that the pipe that you get from anybody that makes pipe in accordance with AWA standards, you're going to get the same performance from each manufacturer. I think it might be a good idea at the beginning of your ductile iron pipe section. You can reference DIPRA as a resource, and we can certainly help explain what standards say. We can help explain the differences between the different methods. We make recommendations, but as long as it's in the standard, we're not going to tell you not to do it that way. Everybody's got their own preferences. And for example, earlier on, we don't recommend tracer wires. We don't think you need them, but we're not going to object to it. Their tracer wires are not in any of the AWA standards for ductile iron pipe, and DIPRA recommends direct tapping rather than using tapping saddles. But the most important thing for us is that you're using ductile iron pipe. And so we've done the tapping test and so forth to demonstrate that our recommendation has value, but we're not going to try to talk you out of doing something that you want to do.
Thank you, Greg. Any other committee members have any questions regarding this case that I'm bringing forward, or any comments for it? Help assist me. All right, hearing none, we're gonna keep this thing moving. I'm gonna roll into agenda item number 10, case 24-06, update detail 345-2, the 4-inch and 6-inch water meters, remove references to specific manufacturers on this. This one in particular, this is another one that I was bringing forward, hoping to get the specific manufacturers out of there. The more I dive into it, the more I'm finding that turbo meters aren't necessarily note 12 aren't necessarily always the best fit. We have one of our city engineers was a city engineer in I think it was Midland in Texas, and he said that he always used compound meters. So I start getting into the type of meter, and then I find working with my distribution guys and my meter shop that they would recommend a Fireline meter, which is a whole different meter altogether. So this detail has not been updated since 1998, and the meter technology has come leaps and bounds since then. So the more I'm looking into this, the more I'm seeing the need to revise different aspects of it. But I hope we could all agree that removing the actual manufacturers would be one key component, since some of these series and whatnot, some of these companies have been overtaken by other companies. They may not even exist anymore. Rockwell, I believe, is Census now. So if we can just eliminate the need to call out a specific manufacturer altogether, that would be a bonus. I do have some updates that I can provide at the next meeting, but I'm looking at the differences between the compound meters, the turbo meters, and the fire line meters. And being that this is for a fire hydrant system, I would naturally gravitate toward the fire line meter, but I wouldn't want to put any entity in that position where they couldn't use one or the other, like this standard is doing by calling out a turbo meter. The other thing, what I'm trying to do is try to capture the meters, I guess, certification, or as in note 8, what note is that? 18, 12, 13, note 13 mentions, note 13? No, note 12 mentions the UL approved. I'm finding that, there's different approvals for the different meters, for the compound meter, the turbo meter versus the fire line meter, anything from AWWA C701 to 702, into the fire line, which doesn't recognize any of those, but it does AWWA 703. So it's one of those things where I can't get one, either an NSF, I can't get one classification to cover all those meters, since they're different FM approved, maybe for a fire line, but not for a compound or a turbo. So I'm kind of running into some challenges with that. Any help would be much appreciated on this particular detail.
Hey, Gene, I know Chandler revised our detail a while back. It makes it more generic. It has a table for dimensions. Obviously, I don't know what our agency installs the meters themselves. We install the meters. But we have a table for the vault size, for the meter size, and depending whether it's a 3-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, and then it provides some dimensions. So, so I'd say this detail probably needs some revamping, and even on the access to it too. But I know that's what you're looking at, is revamping it, but I'm saying it probably needs a little more work than just this, and then maybe looking at what other agencies have.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because when I first dove into it, it was just, oh yeah, let's get rid of the names, the manufacturer names. But then as I started diving into it, this one doesn't particularly call out measurements. Similar, you'd have to refer to a different detail to 321 for the actual vault construction, which I'm not interested in changing. But to your comment, I referenced our detail, and our meter shop supplies our own meters. So same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of the municipalities do supply their own meters. So maybe that's the direction I take when I suggest a change to the actual detail, is the meter should be installed by the municipality, or the meter will be installed by the municipality, something of that nature. But then you start getting into all the different components of it, and that's may not align with all the other municipalities. You guys have a lot more experience some of you have more experience in the committee than I do. When you guys run across challenges like this, I'm taking suggestions on how you handle them. For instance, we would have to reconfigure the whole entire detail. At that point, would you just delete the whole detail and reference the entities supplements? But we're trying to avoid doing that by having good updated details. So it's it's not conducive to what we're trying to do with this committee. So any suggestions would be helpful. How are you guys doing in the water working group? Are you guys pretty loaded up with work? Jim? Or Warren?
I know there's definitely a few topics on the agenda. I did not make it to the last meeting, but I know there's a couple that are in the works, and have been in the works. So
Yeah, sorry, Gene, I was on mute, I was muted. Yeah, we're kind of loaded up, I think, to take something like this. We can discuss it, and if we want to continue it, but the thing that because I've been on that committee for a while, the problem with doing this is like so many cities, agencies have different little quirks or different little modifications that they always end up having a supplement. So I think the only way to do this, if we want to leave it in MAG, is you got to keep it really general. Definitely take out any manufacturer mentions and keep it very general. Maybe just for, that you want valves at a certain location, or you want a certain valve to function the way it is in a bypass, some minimum standards like that. And that's about it. Because if you get too fancy, nobody's going to use it because the agency is going to obviously still have a supplement. So that's the challenge with something like this.
Yeah, I'm finding that. So maybe something with the turbo meter, instead of calling out specifically a turbo meter, maybe call out the meter, something along the lines of meter at the meter type and manufacturers at the agency's discretion, something along those lines.
Yeah, maybe have some minimum vault sizes, because you always need more room. So I could see coming up with a minimum vault size, and then just say reference a meter per the agency requirements, and then your bypass valves, you want to call those out. You need that, maybe the size of the bypass line, stuff that's very generic and general. You can leave in the detail, but leave everything else up to the agency, because I just think from what I've seen from other agency specs is everybody's going to have their own supplement anyway. So then in that case, then why do we need it in MAG? So I keep it very general. So.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I'll look into that. I'm going to look at a couple of the other different agencies and compare it to Glendale's for their meter system, and kind of see if I can generalize this detail as a kind of a catch-all maybe for all the municipalities. I'll look at that. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, because we got we've got a similar case we're working on to discuss blow-off, and it's difficult to have a standard. Not a blow-off, I'm sorry, a ARV. So like, where do you put the shut-off valve? In the street, behind the curb?
The more I dive into it, the more challenging it becomes, the more time consuming it becomes.
Also, just throwing my 2 cents in general, not necessarily specific to this detail, but quite often when we do look at details and they start to expand once you start digging into them beyond your original look. And so sometimes what we've done in the past is, like Chandler has a supplement, Glendale does, you start gathering everybody's supplements and see what those general things that everybody has are, and try and make that on the standard. Or if there's one that, like maybe Chandler has already done revising it, and start with them as the new detail, and then add the things that Glendale needs and so on. So there's different ways to attack it, but those are some of the ways we've done it in the past.
Thank you.
So this is Roy. I just had just a question for the group. Are there some cities in MAG where the city does not provide the meter?
Maybe if I could butt in, this detail should go in the outer right-of-way MAG supplement book and get out of the book, because in my entire 50-year career in this valley, every time I built one of these, the developer and the owner contractor would just be in such a hurry. They'd say, buy all this stuff and put it in. And then you would find out 3 months later, the city's going to take it all out because they're supplying it. And it's very unclear that the city puts the meters in. So I think this should just go out of the book and go into.
Paul, that's a good point, because I did have the initial thought, 4 and 6 inch water meter with on-site fire hydrants So if we don't typically meter, fire hydrants. I don't know of anyone in the past decade.
These all go out. I've never seen a meter vault in the right of way. I've moved them out of the right of way before. I'll tell you that.
Well, we'll do water meters in the right of way, our vaults in the, no, they're behind the right of way line. We
Telling
just
you.
maintain. Yeah, we just maintain them, exactly. But generally the backflow preventer and all that stuff is all above ground anyway for us, for hydrants. For a private hydrant, we'll have everything above ground. Yeah, this one's a tricky one. It's like I said, that's probably why it hasn't been revised since 1998. Wanted to tackle it.
Well, I agree attention should be put to it because it causes a lot of confusion for contractors in the fields, especially those that aren't very well attuned to what's going on around here. And there's a lot of that.
We did set up a section in the outside right-of-way document and the details for that. It's the section 500 water details such as this that are outside. So if one gets developed, we have a home for it.
Yeah, if I would just kind of like everybody was saying, maybe just do a survey of whose cities are actually not in their meter. I can tell you for Phoenix, we don't meter fire lines and they're requiring its own separate connection. So this detail doesn't really apply.
No, it doesn't apply to Glendale either.
But in Phoenix, if you do require meter vaults and they're in the, they will even reference a mag detail, but there's nowhere it says that Phoenix is going to come out and build the thing. Because I've been in a position with the developer that made me install everything. The city came out and had a fit because I put it all in. They took it all out and did it themselves.
Yeah, no,
So it's very confusing.
that
It's not in the right of way. It's not in the right of way. I've heard all these things were behind curb, behind, you know.
many documents that the cities at the end of the day chooses the meter after the meter. Developers are typically just putting everything else up to it, including the water meter box.
And Glendale, we don't meter private fire hydrant lines that I'm aware of. We do have meter vaults, but those are more for domestic water and for landscape and whatnot. But that's not what this detail is. This is for on-site fire hydrant protection or for fire protection. So it's very specific, and yet it's calling out a turbo meter. So maybe this one does need to be moved over. It may need to be moved over to the outside of right away with that other case for the check valve. I'm going to look at before I do anything, I'm going to look at everybody else's publications and see if anybody has anything specific to on-site fire hydrants and metering that water. The only reason why I can think you'd want to meter it is to make sure nobody's stealing it. I mean, because if that building burns down, I think the city and the owner have more problems than anything. Are they going to charge you for the $16 of water that you used or whatever it is?
I know water theft is a real issue for private fire lines, right? Because once they're on site, they can be tapped. Nobody knows. But you're opening a whole different kind of animal there.
Yeah, and if it's a water tap, if it's a hose bib, you'd have to, I don't know if a turbo meter would pick up. I mean, what the minimum gallons per minute a turbo meter even is. Probably 5 to 5 gallons per minute, I would imagine. But you wouldn't catch that low flow anyway, I guess is my point with a turbo meter. If that was your goal, is to monitor if there's water being stolen. Maybe for flushing and exercises, you want to charge them for exercising their hydrants. I think Glendale Fire Department would encourage them to exercise and give them the water, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. So I'll put a little more work into that.
Hey, Gene, this is Warren real quick. I think we're heading in the direction of adding a meter to the double check assembly for that purpose of just for if there's flow through there, it's part of our water loss measures. So we're adding a for that bypass that's on the double check,
Yeah, that's the above ground,
right?
correct, with the 2 wheel valves on it?
Yeah, but there's also for on-site, there's a vault like that you're kind of getting into, I think.
I will definitely look. Do you guys have anything published yet, or are you just working on it?
No, we've had something in our fire department details, as Paul was mentioning, sort of outside of the right of way, but our fire department details, we have on-site hydrant required fire line installation detail. I'll shoot that over to you, but
That would be very helpful, Warren. I would appreciate that. Anybody else have any comments? It'll be a fun one for me, that's for sure. All right. Let's move into agenda item number 11. This is case 24-07, update detail 389 curb stop with valve box and cover. This one again, this one was revised in 01. This one again is calling out specific manufacturers in note 1, which I would like to eliminate. I'll bring an update. I have an update in front of me that I made in the last couple of days, and I'll give you just a quick coverage on that. But I'll have something on the website for the next meeting, more of an update. But I want to change note number 1 to just be curb stop must be certified to NSF 61 and comply with the AWWA standards and the latest requirements for Federal Safe Water Drinking Act. Kind of a mouthful, but then also the manufacturer of the curb stop should be at the discretion of the owner or agency. So I think that's a lot simpler than the previous case. Any suggestions on that? The reason why I'm calling out the NSF 61, which I'll supply that backup for the next meeting, and the AWWA is because all your reparable manufacturers meet those guidelines. Your Muellers, your AFCs, your Jones, all those big names do meet those guidelines. So that's why I was kind of trying to capture those guidelines instead of calling out the names, if that makes sense. Ultimately, though, I think the manufacturer should be at the discretion of the agency. We have our approved list, Glendale does, for all their brass. And we even use a pack joint, which this one is for brass nipple or connecting with a threaded joint. But generally, like all of our brass, we'll use pack joints. This case would have to be a threaded, obviously. But I'll open this up for discussion. If anybody has any comments or wants to give me any feedback on this. All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make sure those updates are in for the next meeting so they can be reviewed by the committee. They can take their time to review them. All right, we'll move into agenda item number 12, case 24-08, revised section 321, 326, paving temperatures. This one's brought to us by the asphalt working group. I'll let Greg go ahead and give me a break, Greg.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Chair. One little quick side note before we get into it. The 321 there, that at least comment should be struck. I thought I got it out of both of them prior to come into there. So this is what we talked about last time, kind of what the thoughts would be. We discussed that they should all match 325, make them all 50 degrees and rising. So that's pretty much what that is there too. The language at the bottom of there, at the bottom of each one of those paragraphs is to kind of preempt a couple things that are coming. I know to be consistent with an EVAC change that's coming for 2025. And it's still allowing the cooler temperatures if the use of a warm mix additive is in place. And we tried to word this enough to where it's still has to be approved by the engineer, obviously, and that any cost of adding such would be at the not on any agency, but at the contractor developer, that they would have to figure that part out.
Incidental. Okay.
Correct. So if they decided they still had to pave, and if an engineer allowed an additive, that they could still pave at some cooler temperatures and be able to achieve density. So I'll open up if anybody has any comments at this point.
Do have one modification or request on the language.
Okay.
If it could read, instead of saying if a warm mix additive is used.
Yep.
We could read if an approved mix design containing a warm mix additive.
If, say it again. Oh, I'll just copy it off your sheet.
yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Just to reinforce that you have to be an approved mix design that already have, it's not just matter of adding a warm mix additive.
Okay.
Like, containing a warm mix additive.
Thank you, Jose.
We weren't married to the language. This is
Yeah,
the first shot across the
I
bow,
figured,
so
I
sure.
figured.
So Greg, help me out for a minute here. Are there different paving mixes that do better? I mean, aside from these additives that you're talking about, are certain pavement mixes okay at a lower 40-degree temperature, and or is 50 really what it should be? And why have we had 40 in there?
40 has been in there as long as we ever can remember. What's gone on here the last few years, and understanding based on our previous conversations that this is usually only relegated to about a 4-week to 6-week period that we have in the beginning of the year. What's happening more and more so is it's not so much just the temperature. Yes, mixes have begun to change, and especially some are more susceptible to other conditions such as wind, that the breeze. So regardless of the temperature, regardless of what you would get from the surface temperature, we have there's contractors that are not wanting to necessarily pave, and they're getting pushback because it says in MAG, hey, it's 40, and they're like, I'm not going to. I could potentially fail the density that is required by the individual
Yeah, I'm
agencies.
putting down 1.5 inch mat and it's windy.
And there was a lot of language in there that said if it was less than 2 inches, you had to be 50 degrees. But generally speaking, anything else that was 2 inches or greater was still at 40. And there are certain failures that were happening out there. And they're like, I'm kind of stuck. They're kind of stuck based to the specification itself. So it's kind of one of those ones where.
Sorry, clarify that. You're saying that the contractors were pushing paving manufacturers to pave when it was colder?
Potentially, in which case they were getting pressure from a developer because it said in
developers
MAG
or
that it's that here, it only says it's got to be 40. Why you have to pave?
I see. My experience coming from the municipality side is usually we're pushing the other end. So I just okay.
That's why.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
This one's open for discussion for anybody, any of our online viewers also. Anybody that wants to ask any questions regarding to Greg or the other committee members on what their experiences are.
I have one quick question back to Jose then, because based on the wording. So if approved by the engineer, so if the mix design is already approved by the engineer with a warm mix additive, does it need further approval?
I
So-
just want to rather clarify that it is an approved mix design, either whether or not if it's approved by the engineer. I don't know that it's needed, in my opinion.
Okay, so then I needed a follow-up question on that because we were trying to put it into that if it came down to it, there could be times where we probably need to think about that one a little bit at the working group, that as a potential drop-in, there's no changes to, all it does is change the molecular side of the binder. Doesn't change, all it does is give the workability at different temperatures. Doesn't change any of the volumetric properties of the design or anything else. So the question would be, maybe we can talk about that at the working group if you're.
Whether or not it needs a new mix design.
Whether or not it's a new design or not.
So I was reviewing the 710 section, right? And it part of the mix design requirements, if it does contain a warm mix additive, it has to say it out in there.
Understood.
So it's like in order for this to work with that section.
Understood, but so then again, we're back to the 6 week and there's potential for short period. I don't think the potential for this could go away without that because not everybody's gonna go do a whole full set of designs across the board for that short window too. So we might need to talk about that one. a
Yeah,
little
but
bit
then
more.
we're talking about changing another section, right?
I get it, but that's liquid antistrip, not warm mix currently.
No, I was just looking at the requirements when you use a warm mix additive. It's in 710.
Currently in 710?
Yes.
Okay, we'll have to go back. I'll have to go back and do a little more work on that.
Yeah,
But we'll
thank
pick this
you,
up with the
Jose.
working group, so.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a little more work to put into it, but
That's fine. Thank you.
yeah, it's helpful knowing that it's also in 710. Anybody else have any questions or comments or discussions on this item? All right. Hearing none, we're going to move to agenda item number 13, case 24-09, revised section 710, concrete, asphaltic concrete to allow liquid anti-strip. This one also is brought from the asphalt working group. Greg, you want to?
So this is from a national level, it's gaining a lot more traction. I don't know. I would imagine at some point each agency is gonna hear something along the line of carbon footprint reduction or EPDs, environmental product declarations. There's gonna be a lot of that coming down the pike. So this is our start to be able to incorporate these new technologies as they become available. We worded it, if you look at the first page, mineral admixture, liquid antistrip, or I don't know why liquid antistrip is highlighted on there. We didn't change anything there, but or the combination thereof. We started in this realm for a couple different reasons. And then if you go on to the last page, it's got all the blue and red there. What we have done there is made some requirements for what they should be. We've got a couple more little things we got to work through on this table. There were some comments at the last working group that I don't think we got quite all of. There was a couple of gentlemen there that had some other comments. I don't think they all got quite incorporated, but we'll pick that up at the working group. The rest of the language there is to safeguard any agency that doesn't necessarily want to use it. And then two, a safeguard there for the dry strength, wet strength. Looking at all the historical data and where we've come this far, we have seen some of the dry strengths reduce with only some of the additives that may meet this table. So as a safeguard for that was to say that if you're going to use one, you have to maintain a 3-year historical 90% of the 3-year historical dry strengths for that particular mix from that particular plant to try and give some safeguard because MAG allows 100 PSI as a minimum dry strength. The problem is right now, currently, if we have a design that is normally 175 or 165 dry strength, and somebody would use one of these products and come back, we don't want this to be construed as why something maybe had less strength and caused some other problems down the road. So we're trying to give as much safeguards in for all the agencies, whether they approve it or not. And then stuff that if you're going to use these products, you have to maintain this threshold in order for it to be considered. This case still has a ways to go. So if anybody has any comments, please feel free.
Sure, I'll start. Sorry, just
you would.
mainly questions, right? For the agencies that are potentially electing not to adopt LAS so far. I think it was the minimum requirement for admixture has been struck out. The only thing I would ask is condition it. If liquid antistrip is not used, then you keep that requirement in there, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point.
The other, I had a question mainly on the where it says that you need to maintain a minimum of 10% TSR increase over control. What is a control?
So That's one of the comments that came in from one of them. We need to do a little more work
Okay.
on that. I have a question on that one myself. to be
Yes, I
honest.
wasn't sure if that meant
So,
the control means that the current mix design with lime or cement, or
well, the thing about it is
Without it.
what gets tough, what gets difficult is, and I don't know why he worded it the way he did. Because if you talk about, okay, we're worried about the strengths, or reduction of strength, right? Well, I think what his thought was, and I need some more clarification. So if you're 165 on a dry strength and we wanted to maintain 90% of that dry strength. I think what he's saying is if historically, then the wet strength was only a 75 TSR, the difference between the wet strength and the dry strength then, I think what he's saying is, okay, if we do that, we should also, maybe it's an 85 at the 90%, but I need to ask him a couple more questions. I think he's saying that 10%, that the 10% you would give up in the strength would come back in the retained strength between the TSRs. But
yeah, it's a little bit
well,
complicated.
I agree with you. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm working on it. Okay.
Yes, the other, I also had a question, right? And it probably have to do along with the whole thing, right? Because the normal requirement for the mixed design is at least a bare minimum of 65% TSR, but it probably has to do all with the TSR, right? Because you're gonna be able to meet all of them at the same time.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So from looking at a whole bunch of different designs, either ours or some other, across the valley, I don't see anybody around 100. So that's why that language is in there, to make sure we maintain that. And then you're right, the rest of it, we have to dot a few more i's and cross t's. Now, I'm still not 100%. I know they went through it. I'd like them to explain it a little bit more at the working group, but the material must meet one of the two. It's either an amine-based product or it's an acid-based product. So that's why it must meet one of the two requirements. It can't be both. So it's going to be one type or the other. Something else we got to discuss at the working group.
Are you in the asphalt working group, Jose?
No, I sent somebody that's way smarter than me for that.
I don't know.
I know you asked
holding
some
your
pretty
own.
good questions, Jose.
Yeah, you're holding your own over there.
No, and then I guess the last thing, and I'll bring it out to Rob to bring it out to the committees.
Yep.
We rely on, you did a study that the city of Phoenix rely a lot on, and they recommend a lot to perform this methylene blue test to make sure whether or not the aggregates have clay, because apparently LAS are very susceptible to the clay content. So I'm not sure if that was discussed to introduce that.
We have not. We can talk about that one for sure. Inclusion of that if you're going to use those. So the other reason to try and strengthen some of this too. So not trying to use, I know we're doing some other research as well. It doesn't look like with the current technology that a straight up one meets, but we put all the safeguards in just in case. But the combination of the two, a reduction in the lime content, so right now I've got two different guys saying that instead of a 1, it's like between a 0.35 and 4.5, depending on their testing, with a couple different additives, still maintains everything that we're talking about here. I don't know. Who knows? Technology changes all the time. So we may get to that point. But the big thing is, from an environmental carbon footprint standpoint, lime is, you'd think it's the binder. That lime is crazy. Got a huge carbon footprint. It's all power generated to make.
And then also I think the PM10 consideration, right?
Yep. And some of that as well. The other side about that too is just from an asphalt supplier looking back at it, is you're like, okay, within the framework of the designs, you're like, so I'm going to take 6/10 of bottom end out of this. What am I going to do now? So we got some other things to work through. I'm not even so sure who's eventually going to use it, but the data's out there. There's plenty of work being done. ASU's got gobs and gobs of stuff going on. They had the other one. Now that was a straight up just liquid anastrip. And if you saw the differences between the two, but the combination, there's products out there now that in conjunction is working pretty well. So
That's some of the things that we had somebody at the city came out, one of the manufacturers or chemical companies, and that's what we're asking, right? Because I think right now some of the studies that we've seen is the liquid ionostrip agents do achieve that minimum PSR, but from an agency perspective, lime and cement still seem to perform a lot better.
I agree. And then you've got the other side of the coin where they're saying, well, are you sure that's not too stiff? Is that not contributing to some of the other, cracking and some of the other things that is it stiffening it up too much? So, I mean, there's a lot of work to still be done, plenty of research going on, so. But we'll continue this with the working group. Sorry, sidebar.
No, that's all good information. I'm glad Jose's got smart people over there. Those are good questions. Any other committee members have anything on this case? Any discussion they want to bring up? All right, move into agenda item number 14. Case 24-010 or -10. This revised section 602 trenchless or open cut installation of casing. This one's brought by Arvid from the Water and Sewer Working Group. Arvid, I'll go ahead and give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The industry of trenchless technology is continuing to expand, and the biggest area that we're seeing the expansion in is in the use of alternative casing materials. And so what we're proposing to do in MAG 602 is, aside from offering steel casing, which is your traditional casing that's installed in the ground with a welded joint, we're now adding in the options for, can you scroll down a little bit there for us, Gordon? So you've got mechanical joint steel casing, which is either in the industry, it's going to be either a Permalock or a Trilock material. And then below that is a CC, what's the next one down there, Gordon? A little bit further. It's the centrifugal cast fiberglass reinforced polymer mortar pipe casing. So in these two offerings that are being added into MAG 602 for casing options, just in the last couple of years, we've had multiple agencies use CCFRP, which is either Hobus or there's another manufacturer in the market that makes this product, and it's used as the casing versus steel. We see this used a lot in the electrical world with APS SRP. It is a great product. It's a bell and spigot product, and it allows for a more rapid installation of the project because it doesn't require the welded joint. It is a watertight joint. And then with the mechanical joint steel casing, again, you've got a mechanical joint that snaps together. It's a watertight joint, and it eliminates the need for spending time to weld. America Flood Control District recently did a project up at Cave Buttes Dam where they installed 930 feet of 60-inch Permalock casing pipe underneath the dam as an auxiliary outlet. And it's also approved in AREMA as an approved product going underneath railroads. We wanted to improve MAG 602 to allow the agencies to have options other than just traditional welded steel casing to allow for more efficient installation of the casing product on projects. That's the gist of it.
Thank you, Arvid. I think it's important to have multiple materials like that. I encourage it.
We're trying to, again, keep it as current as possible with the growth of technology in trenchless technology, with TBMs, with pilot tube auger boring, specifically methodologies that are becoming more predominantly used. These products are allowing us to save weeks on the installation process and still produce the same end product, which of course is helping to keep costs more in control in the long run. And again, being that they're proven products, approved by AREMA. In both cases, both products are used in the AREMA for railroad crossings. It pretty much sets the standards that if the railroads are allowing them to be used, it should be a consideration of MAG to let them be used because it's meeting that highest standard of the railroad crossings. So therefore, if there's any questions, I'm open to anything that you guys have on it. I can give information if you wanted, some links to these products if you want to look at them. But again, it's just putting it in MAG to allow the agencies and the designers to have the option to now use them instead of just using traditional welded steel.
Is ADOT using any of these alternative pipes, post pipes?
ADOT allows Permalock, to my knowledge. I don't know that they've had a product yet where CCFRP was installed, but it has been used by agencies throughout the valley for storm drain. And again, SRP and APS use them pretty frequently.
Under roadway, obviously.
Yeah, we recently did a tunnel underneath the railroad track for SRP for a 230 kV duct bank. They prefer the Hobus CCFRP versus steel casing for heat dissipation reasons. So they're putting these high voltage power duct banks to the ground. They want to be able to get the heat away, and the steel traps it more than the polymer concrete does. And so, yeah, the beauty of these two additional products is that, again, in the trenchless application, if you can set a joint, a 20-foot joint, and snap it together and keep going in 30 minutes versus set and weld for 8 hours or 6 hours, you're allowing the productivity. And where a lot of this comes from is that with the recent updates to AREMA with BNSF and UPRR specifically in our state, who handle the rail modal world, they now have this zone A rule that you have to cross this zone A in a 24-hour or in a nonstop process. So you could, the moment you enter zone A, you can't stop. Well, if you have to go 100 feet, the most recent projects we've done, we've been out there 32 hours and 28 hours straight. And that's just a stretch in a world where people are not available and you don't have multiple crews. So now you're asking a single 3 or 4 person crew to stay there that long. You now open the door for safety issues and concerns of that nature. So these products allow us to cut that installation time way down, which is again why AREMA approves them, because it's getting the casing in the ground in a more efficient manner, which is therefore reducing the exposure risk to the railroad. Therefore, you're getting a better end product in their mind.
Hey, Albert, I have a question real quick. Is there any limitations with like the fiberglass casings,
Mm-mm.
the kind of skis or spacers that you can use?
No, you can use it. Again, it's this product specifically is made by the manufacturers as a jacking load. It's a jacking grade pipe, and it's designed as a casing. It can be used as a product. Like you guys have used this as storm drain before. So we'll direct jackly install this through the ground. And then just like with ADOT, you'll put this through the ground directly without a casing, and then it becomes a storm drain. So it can be used as a carrier line, or it can be used as a casing.
Okay.
And you can still put stuff through it. You can, and again, the diameter options there are what they offer as an industry, which is a little bit more than what's offered by the steel casing industry.
And if your jack and board is a limitation, how much you could push through, or is it?
No, no limitations. We've done thousands of feet on single runs. And Hobus and the other manufacturer that make the CCFRP pipe, like I said, it's a bell and spigot rubber gasketed joint. So it allows you to just go without ever having to set and stop, do the welding.
So Arvid, I did send Gordon a little while ago 4 photos on a PDF on an email that shows the installation almost 30 years ago that was done for an SRP project. It's got pictures of the Hobus pipe, of the jacking that's going on. That may be beneficial for people to see. I'm not sure we can bring it up now, but it's in Gordon's hands now, so he could distribute it.
Was it on Indian School?
No, this was Tempe. This was Elliott.
Elliott, okay.
You guys did it.
48 inch, yeah, okay. I thought so. It sounded familiar.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, I think that was back when I was a kid in the field.
I don't want to think about that stuff.
I know.
Yes, it but there's some photos of it, so give people an idea what it looks like. That was a very stiff, very hard soil, cemented in some areas, and it was successfully jacked and bored in, or jacked in, really.
So I have a question on the casing diameter. Is the casing diameter the internal, the ID?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be the ID that you're seeing there. Correct.
So spacers and whatnot, they're not exclusive to the type of pipe?
So casing spacers that will carry a product line through the casing are all custom built to whatever dimensions you tell the manufacturer to build them to. If you had a 18-inch ductile iron water line and you had a 54-inch casing for some reason, you could just have them built to those standards. There's no set size. They're all custom made to order in that regard. And you can get steel casing theoretically in any diameter you want on the inch. What these tables reflect are the industry standards by which the products are installed. So for example, CCFRP is typically going to be either installed by hand tunneling or with a TBM. You're not going to stick auger in this product because you'll damage the casing. It's not made for auger boring. But with a TBM or a hand tunnel, you're going to push this through the earth in a real efficient manner because you're not spending time welding. With the mechanical joint steel casing, Gordon, if you can scroll up a minute, it basically follows the steel casing, welded steel casing table with the regard that below 30-inch, they don't make a mechanical joint because it's just too expensive at that small of diameter. So starting at 30 and the 30, 36, and the numbers you see there, those are listed because they follow the auger sizes that are built in the industry. Auger is built on 6-inch increments starting at 24-inch all the way up to 72-inch. So it follows those standards. And again, the wall thicknesses for the most part follow the ARIMA standards back when it was originally put together, updated. So anyway, send it back to the agencies and get questions if you have any comments. Again, it's really just looking to add options for you all to use in the future.
Got a super technical comment. When I look at the first page, I have no idea what CCFRPM is. And I was reading, trying to find it, and it took me to the page 2 before I found the definition of that. Can we maybe add that up?
Absolutely.
To the front
At the top.
somewhere?
Yeah. Do you want to put it right at the top?
Yeah, I think typically whenever you introduce an acronym, you'll introduce the name first.
So we'll put the full write out of that, and then we'll put in parentheses CCFRPM.
Yeah, then from that point on.
And then we can use the acronym. Yep, you got it. From here on, known as, yeah.
Any other committee members have any questions or discussion on this topic? Thank you, Arvid. I look forward to seeing other alternative materials
You're welcome.
being used and offered. We're not limited to just steel. Well, we'll go ahead and items proposed to be heard outside of right-of-way cases. Under consideration, this is going to be agenda item number 15. New vegetated rock bioswales. This one, Peter, you've been handling this one from day one, right?
Well, yeah, we've got the city of Tempe has been really really doing a lot of the hard work on this. I don't know. I can give an update on where we are. We did receive the comments, as you see, from City of Phoenix, and last I understood, Gordon, correct me if I'm wrong, during our last meeting, we talked about this being that these are going to be incorporated. We did not, I don't think, got any revisions yet on these. So we're working on making the changes and additions to it right now. Hopefully we'll have it for the next meeting and get the revised version out.
The other thing is, I believe Mesa sent some comments just the other day.
Yes, yes, that's right. So right now they're in with City of Tempe's hands, and I think that they're making the revisions now. We'll probably talk about it in our next meeting. Hopefully we'll have it by then.
And the comments that you're referencing funneled up through the working group, I assume?
Yes, yes.
Great. All right, we'll move into agenda item number 16, outside of right-of-way, the thermoform PVC drain basins. That one was Warren White, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I did speak with Nick Burton today, and as it stands, still needs to incorporate the City of Phoenix comments. He plans to do that. He just needs to get his drafter lined up. He looks to have that ready for the next outside of right-of-way meeting this month, and then should have everything back to the committee next month. So
Thank you. All right, the next one for outside of right-of-way cases for 2024 is 24-A, the retention basin spillway details 510-1 and 510-2, move detail 227. Peter, can you kind of update us on this or fill us in on this?
Yes, we introduced this at the last meeting, and we're at this point awaiting comments in general. What we've developed are the intermediate details. A year ago or so, we get the sedimentation or sediment trap detail had been adopted into the MAG specification, but we were missing the piece in between, which is how do you get it to the sediment trap? So this was the attempt to fill in the gap, which is the concrete spillway version of that. There will be others, but we realize there's going to be different options on that. And so this was introduced to be that missing piece right now. As time moves on, there's going to be development of riprap spillways, probably slope side spillways, but we needed to get this one in there so we didn't have that missing piece. And it's gone through comments internally within the working group. This is the product of the working group. There's one for a scupper one underneath sidewalks, and then the one that's from the curb cut option. So we're just awaiting comments on it now.
Great. Sounds like you guys are getting traction on that one then. All right. The next item we have is 18, which is outside of right away, the 24-B, move detail 346 fire line detector vault from MAG, from the standard specifications and details to the outside of right away book. This one in particular, Gordon, do we need to vote to move? Do we need to move this one to action and vote to get it over into the outside of right away working group?
No.
Publication?
No, I don't believe any votes required. It's just when you sponsor a case, you can say this is where it needs to go and that's where it'll go. And then when it's voted on, if it is approved, then it would go into the book at that point.
Okay. So this one in particular, if I can find it, we were going to move over to the outside of right away. We're also going to remove some reference to manufacturers. And let's go off that one there. And we were going to reference the correct details, which is 310, 315, and 319. This one in particular actually shows the vault construction as well and the apparatus inside the vault. I guess my question would be, Peter, would the outside of right-of-way group, would they be now take over sponsorship on this detail?
In terms of doing it, I mean, you can sponsor it. Anybody can sponsor it. It's just where it's going to go. We do have reserved that 300 section. So the detail number, all that would change in that is we would just reference as outside right away number 346. The changes that are shown there, anybody can make those changes and they would just go in there. We don't own any specific ones. I mean, there's we're just a working group. That's all. I'm not sure how I mean, if you want to sponsor it, I can sponsor it however you'd like to do this.
So I think we can collaborate on that, but under the notes on note 1, I had noticed the fire line from city main to property line shall be constructed of cast iron pipe. Does anybody use cast iron pipe anymore? Turn on your mic.
So likely it would be very helpful, and I'm definitely not the person for that, to get somebody who's got the water background to know if this should be updated before going in addition to the updates shown.
So this is an underground vault for basically fire line detector check vault. So it's got a swing valve, swing check in it, so you don't get backflow. and it has a wheel valve in it, but it's calling out cast iron pipe, which I haven't seen cast iron pipe going at all in Glendale. So
No, nobody makes cast iron pressure pipe anymore. You could change that to ductile iron.
okay, that was one of my. Thank you for that, Greg. That was is it Greg? Yeah, Greg. That was one of my first things I noticed on that, and then the other thing was note 8. Parts of the pipe to be embedded in concrete shall be wrapped with 30 pounds of asphalt roofing felt.
So I always ask Paul when this kind of stuff comes up, what do you do, Paul? What are you doing?
Paul, what did we do back in the day?
Well, I'll tell you, it was always the preference of whoever your inspector was, because all of these things are so goofy, and they predominantly come under the control of the builder because they're serving his needs. I think Surprise might have the best input on some of this because they just put in some of the biggest check swings I've ever seen up on Olive and El Mirage at a big installation. But those are not used very often. I will tell you that.
And I take it you're not using 30 pounds of asphalt roofing felt?
Only if we nick the ductile, you see. That was what that was for. If we nicked the ductile up, we had to cover it back up with some asphalt felt and stuff. No, we're not doing that.
So
I don't think they even make it, do they?
Greg or Jeffrey with DIPRA, I mean, in 1998, was that a standard practice for ductile iron pipe? I mean, I know this references cast iron pipe.
No, in 98, there was no preference for cast iron pipe. We were putting in asbestos pipe as much as we possibly could. And maybe we had just gone to ductile, but that was the plastic age also. So, I don't know. A lot of these specs are so antiquated that the references don't make sense pretty much throughout them,
No, it's pretty old detail. It hasn't been updated in a long time. So while I have them message, if this was embedded in concrete, it would still be poly wrapped. Is that correct? Or no?
It doesn't have to be the only thing that would happen inside the vault, if it was atmospheric, you wouldn't have a problem. If it was going into soil and in contact with the concrete going through a wall, you might get corrosion right there at the interface. And so you could use a polyethylene sleeve to isolate the pipe from the concrete. But where the concrete is actually in contact with the pipe, it would protect it. It's just that as you leave the vault and go into the soil, you're going to have a high pH, low pH corrosion cell set up. And so you could get corrosion right there at the interface.
So you're saying, what I'm hearing is everything from you'd start at the interior wall of the vault, and you would use your encasement out into the soil, but encasement is not necessarily needed inside the vault?
Not if it's atmospheric. And there wouldn't be any, I mean, if you had the water table intruded into the vault, and the soil was normally corrosive, the water might be aggressive. And
So then you might want to consider a water stop here if you're going to revise the detail.
Yeah, that's and there are different ways to penetrate water, but that
we used link seals a lot through the 90s.
Right. I had I was running a construction project a long time ago, and that's what they use, link seals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would work.
So a water stop junction with the poly wrap, so the water stop would go around the poly wrap? Or no?
Probably not, because the water could seep between the poly wrap and the pipe then.
So now you're talking about stopping and taping the poly wrap before you enter into the vault on the exterior wall. If you're in the soil and you're coming up to the exterior wall, where you tape off poly wrap, you would have a water stop, and you would be the pipe would be protected from the concrete. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the pipe isn't going to attack concrete isn't going to attack the pipe, but like I say, as you leave the concrete, you might you're having a difference in pH. The concrete's got a very high pH, and that actually protects iron. But once it leaves the vault, it's exposed to the soil, and that'll typically have, well, it will definitely have a much lower pH. You might only need to apply a localized coating going through the wall, just to isolate it that way. But I mean, once you get away from the outside of the wall, you don't have anything to worry about, except for unless the soil's aggressive.
Yeah, and then we'll, like Jim had mentioned, possibly a water stop if this thing is, it could be potentially in an area of irrigation or landscape irrigation where you can get some water infiltration into the vault.
I'd just like to comment that a water stop typically is used when the pipe is completely encased and the concrete pressure holds that water stop against the pipe.
Right.
And so a link seal is the mechanical rubber water stop joint that you can tighten mechanically to make sure it doesn't leak. So I don't think a water stop's the right terminology for what we're talking about going in and out of this. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, kind of to add to what Paul was saying also, you probably don't want to encase that pipe in the wall of the structure. If you ever have any maintenance, now you got to take the structure out. So you probably want to have a block out of some sort.
A block out with some grout packed in.
No, really, the link seal is the thing to go with, and then you use a non-shrink grout on either side of the link seal. So.
That's it. That's the way to do it.
Okay. Well, Peter, I'll put some more. I mean, I might email you back and forth. But obviously, we're going to move this over to the outside of right away. I'll keep working on removing the referencing the correct details and then removing the manufacturers from it, and possibly looking at the link seal and the non-shrink grout at the penetrations. Fair enough?
Yeah, there were 2 other manufacturer references I thought I saw in there on the detail itself outside of the notes. You may want to check that. At the top one, is it Ford Gulf Box? Right there.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then the next cross-section below, it's got Badger Meter Company, Read-O-Matic Register Approved Equal.
See, Peter, we did all the work for you already.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. People do the work for me. You're getting me in foreign territory here. So yeah, mark it up. More than happy. I think we can just, like I said, keep the number and just put outside right away and put the new border around it. But you just get the wording changed and we can just shift it right on over.
Well, Gordon, do you even have this one in CAD or no?
Yeah, I've got the original CAD drawings and I can help make CAD changes later if you need.
Great. Well, in the sake of keeping this thing moving, oh, wow, we have a long one today. I'm going to move on to the items proposed to be heard. Other items, working group, reports from the working group chairs and plans for upcoming meetings, meeting agendas included in the packet. It was included in the packet. Jim, you want to take off the water sewer working group?
Yeah, I'll keep it really quick here, Mr. Chairman. So we met on the 23rd of April. And we basically just covered the stuff we've done here. That Warren wasn't there, so we didn't really have any discussion on tracer wire. Although we did just have a brief discussion on, and we got to make a decision, Warren, on the valve box detail. If we're going to have a alternate or an option to install tracer wire in the valve box, we talked about adding it to that one detail. I think it's 391.
Correct.
And then just modify that detail instead of creating a new one. So we can discuss that further. Then we just talked about some of them. I think Miss Craig had a miscellaneous item that we talked about already. And then, Gene, we talked about your cases real quick, the tie rods elimination. I think everybody's in favor of that. And then the DIPRA, really didn't talk about that too much. I think we covered it pretty well today. Then some of the new cases we're still working on is the one that we introduced today with Arvid, the alternate material for 602. The other thing that we're also looking at, it's not a case yet, but adding a new material. Since we're on the FRP pipe, we would add a material in the 700 section for fiberglass reinforced pipe. And it's not the same stuff that Arvid was talking about, but basically just looking at adding FRP for storm drain or sewer in the large diameters. So we're working with the manufacturer on that, Hobos, just trying to make it generic so it'll fit into mag. And we had that was about it. We did have an additional item about, since we're on the tracer wire and I tracing things, a lot of cities have gone to using polymer concrete meter boxes. And so now with that, so if they get buried, you can't find them because they don't have the metal lids. So we got a representative from Oldcastle, and they were talking about they can add a metal, relatively cheap, piece of metal basically in the meter box lid. So if agency wants to require that for traceability, if it gets buried, that can be done, I guess, pretty cheaply. So we might look at that in the future as a new case. So
Okay.
I think that was it. Was Rafi with? Maybe I got that wrong. Is he with ArmorCast or I think he's thinking with ArmorCast, not Oldcastle, right, Gordon?
I think that's right.
So I might have had that wrong, but he's been pretty helpful. And that was about it. Our next meeting will be on May 21st. And Gene, you're welcome to come and to discuss your cases as well. So
Thank you for the invite, Jim.
and that was it. Thank you.
All right.
If I may, I need to get going. I'm on the East Coast and I got to drive people to dinner. But I really appreciate.
We all got you going.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the invitation and enjoyed getting to know you guys a little bit.
Well, we appreciate you taking time to sit through the meeting and help us work with some of this stuff. And I'll be reaching out to Jeffrey for questions. But thank you.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Take care.
All right. Back into item number 19, the asphalt materials concrete working group. Greg, you want to give us a brief one on that?
Absolutely. So our meeting was on April 18th. The gist of our conversations were really around the cases that today, 2403, which was voted on and passed, 2408 and 2409, which we already did. And we began working on what we had a conversation at the last meeting to bring forward as a case. I'm hoping that we can get this done at the next working group and bring it over. And that's kind of the new section 700 and 300 to kind of use the polymer modified more in line with kind of the EVAC currently. That's going to take a little bit of work. We've got most of the design section done. It's going to be the placement section that's going to take some more time. So our next meeting is going to be probably pretty lengthy. So hopefully we can get that submitted in June. Other than that, our next meeting is scheduled for May 16th at noon at the ARPA offices. We usually get more than enough food, so everybody's welcome.
What day is that?
May 16th. May 16th. Thank you.
Peter, you want to take us to the outside of working group, the update?
Yes, and we've gone over the cases already that are active. Let me just talk about the new cases that we're working on right now. The detention tank details, we went over the CMP version extensively. One of the results of that is the revisions to the existing MAG CMP standards. And that's going to probably go through the that will go through the sewer and water working group, because it's actually being done within the MAG standards. But those standards will then be referenced back to this detail. So it simplified the detail on that quite a bit. So we worked on that one, and we're hoping at our next meeting to finalize that. So in June, we can get this, get that case into for discussion in July at the very latest, but June probably. Stormwater harvesting basins, we've got the original discussions there. That's probably going to get delayed for a year because we need to get the infiltration trench detail in first, because it's going to reference back to that. So we've decided to postpone the stormwater harvesting and move into the infiltration. We have a rough draft of that and for comments. And hopefully at the May 16th meeting, we'll get some comments on that. And again, July at the outside, we'd like to get the infiltration trench details in. We've talked about moving some existing MAG standards. You found another one we need to do. I've got to get a list to everybody of the suggested ones and bring that up probably in the June meeting of this group, and talk about the potential to move those over into the outside right-of-way document. Other than that, I think, we talked to Blue Corps showed up for that, and they're going to work with us probably through the year for next year to look at a different type of their version of the detention basins. Plus we have the plastic, if you want to call it that, the non CMP versions we'll be working on next year. I think that covers everything we did. Looking through my notes here.
All right, thank you.
Our next meeting is May 16th.
May 16th, there it is. That's the last one. You guys providing lunch?
No, I tried this last time. Nobody well, I'm sure nobody showed up. There's only about 4 of us that showed up. There were plenty of pizza left for everybody. So this one will just be a remote virtual meeting.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Agenda item number 20, new or potential cases for 2024. We had on there potential updates to sidewalk ramps. I've shared those markups from, I believe it was Craig Sharp and Buckeye had made some comments on some of the MAG details. I'm not sure who else has been involved in that. I've shared that with my guys. Any other potential cases for 2024?
The only other ones that we've talked a little bit about is the potential revisions for the PROAG updates. I did send an email kind of adding to what Craig had sent and shared. We had our training from the Access Board a few weeks ago and got some good insights on how to handle that single ramp. And we can do that now, or we can share it at the next meeting. Gordon, I sent that to you as an email.
Yeah, let's cover that at the maybe next.
Yeah, it's a bigger topic.
All right, thank you for that. If there's nothing else on that agenda item for potential new cases. All right. We're going to move into agenda item number 21, which is the staff report. Gordon can provide us if he has anything, any updates with any kind of staff report, Gordon.
No, the only thing that I wanted to remind people is that the meeting next month will be June 12th, being moved back a week. So remember to adjust that on your calendar.
Thank you for the reminder, Gordon. All right. Agenda item number 22, general discussion. It's basically for any topics of interest related to specifications, construction practices, or technologies. We have a lot going on throughout this whole entire meeting with the previous agenda items, but does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up? Because now is the time.
I would just like to know what the record is for the longest meeting, because this has got to be close.
Trying to, it's not it according to Greg, so it's the longest one. All right, we'll move into agenda item number 23, request for future agenda items. Does anybody have a request for any future agenda items? All right. Agenda item number 24, comments from the committee. This is the committee is not allowed to propose or discuss or deliberate or take action on any of the comments. But if there's any committee members that would like to comment, they're more than welcome to. All right, hearing none, I think we can move into adjournment. Call this meeting adjourned. I appreciate everybody that stayed and stuck around. I know some didn't, but thanks for hanging around and sticking with us. Y'all have a good trip home.
You too.
Thank you.
Everybody take care.
Thank you. Drive